What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe here with some Dynasty Buy Low wide receivers 2022 fantasy football content. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section down below. And yeah, let's hop right into it. So first up, I've got Courtland Sutton as my wide receiver Dynasty Buy Low. The reason being, I think Courtland Sutton is going to end up being the number one and the number two option for Russell Wilson one way or another, and I'll explain why. So Russell Wilson in 2020, he also had two top 10 wide receivers when he was Seattle. Seattle was 20th in pass attempts that year. So you can support two guys, whether it's Sutton or Judy as the one. I don't think it really matters if you're buying Courtland Sutton right now. Me personally, I do think it will be Courtland Sutton. I'm very confident in the talent. Jerry Judy's a talented player as well, but I think Courtland Sutton's a little bit more closer to a finished product and has shown that he can dominate already in his career. He had a 1,100-yard season with Joe Flacco and only 124 targets. And the Broncos have given him a large extension, a 4-year, $60 million contract. So he's getting paid, and he is, the team has intended for him to be a building block of the franchise. He's also a year removed now from his ACL injury last year. He's the first year back on that recovered ACL, but now he's a year away from that. I think he's just gonna be healthier, get that full offseason of real training coming into the season with Russ. I think he's gonna be really good. He had a 71.2 PFF grade in 2021, pretty solid when you consider the type of quarterback play he was playing with as well. And then 83.1 in 2019 when he had that big season. He's a big play wide receiver. I think that Russ, with his pretty deep ball, well, maybe one of the best deep ball throwers in all the NFL, is going to help him big time. So I think that's huge for Courtland Sutton. I think he's a great guy to go out and buy in dynasty drafts right now. I think he could easily be a top 12 wide receiver. I think he's going to be a top 24 receiver. And I think you can buy him as like a back end 20 to 24 wide receiver right now. And I just love that value in dynasty leagues. Would love to trade for him. I think you could get him for, a second round pick and a mediocre player at best, and you could secure Courtland Sutton right now or something similar to that. A lot of opportunity right now to buy Courtland Sutton in dynasty. Moving on to our next receiver, Darnell Mooney, receiver for the Chicago Bears. He had 1,055 yards receiving last year on 81 receptions, 140 targets, and a 74.7 PFF grade. And he's a bona fide number one wide receiver on this team. He's a young player who had over 1,000 yards in year two. He's coming into year one. No more Allen Robinson on this roster even. He's a bona fide one. We know that coming into this season. And he's already had 140 targets last year, a good PFF grade. He's a good receiver. He can run. He's real fast, can stretch the field. I think the Bears are just going to have a ton of positive game scripts for him this year. I think they're going to be losing a lot of games. The Bears' win total right now is currently set at 6.5, so Vegas agrees that they're going to lose some games. And I think he had a 1,000-yard season plus last year, and that was with Justin Fields playing as poorly as he did the entire Bears. I'm not saying that they're going to get a lot better, but what if Justin Fields improves? I don't think he's going to get much worse. Not being coached by Matt Nagy now and all that stuff. I think, if anything, I'm not saying he'll be a stud quarterback, but I don't think he's going to get much worse than he played last year. And Darnell Mooney had a 1,000-yard receiving season last year. I think there's a lot of upside for Mooney. I don't think he's a guy that you have to pay up a bunch for, even though he's a young player and had a lot of success last season. So he's a guy on this list I think you can still somewhat buy low on. Excited about Darnell Mooney heading towards the 2022 fantasy football season. Heading on to our next wide receiver, Kenny Golladay, wide receiver for the New York Giants. He's got a big contract. There's no denying it. He signed a 4-year, $72 million contract with $40 million guaranteed. He's also the highest wide receiver cap hit in all of football this season. So that's something just to keep in mind, just how much he's getting paid currently. And he's another guy. I think you are really buying Kenny Golladay right now at his floor if you trade for him. He's a talented wide receiver. He's had 2,000-yard seasons already in the books. Graded at over a 79 on PFF 3 of the last 4 years. So that's a pretty high grade. He's a guy who can stretch the field. And right now he's going as a double-digit round pick in redraft leagues. I think in dynasty leagues you can scoop this guy up on the low. And yeah, sure, he might not, have a great season with the Giants this year, but he could be on another team potentially 2 years from now. And, you have a completely different outlook on him for dynasty and his 3-year outlook from now. But I think he can have a much better season this year no matter what happens with the Giants. I think he's headed for it as long as he can stay healthy. Sterling Shepard's probably going to miss some time. I just imagine this offense is just going to make a much more concerted effort to get him the ball. It's very odd to me that they pay him so much money and they don't utilize him very much. Um, Hope that Daniel Jones can take a step forward with Brian Daboll there. We saw what Brian Daboll did. Not saying that this is the same thing, but with Stephon Diggs, they're very different receivers. But maybe he can get him the ball a little bit more. Realize that he does have a talented football player, and target him a little more. He is a big play wide receiver as well. Doesn't need a ton of targets to be successful, but if he's hyper targeted, he can be an absolute monster. 16.31 yards per catch over his career, and the Giants over under in wins currently this year is set at 7. So it's a positive game script for him for throwing the ball deep, for trying to come back in these games. I definitely see that happening. Like I said, he's currently a double-digit round pick. A lot of these redraft leagues, you can scoop this guy up for nothing in Dynasty, and I really like the idea of buying low right now on Kenny Golladay. If you guys have made it to this point in the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down in the comment section down below. Thank you guys for watching.